All right, everybody, welcome back to the Is It Legit podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why your good intentions are killing your marriage. Recently, we've had some friends and family talk to us about relationship challenges, and we'd like to address them because that's what we like talking about. So, Peter, why did we want to talk about this, and what kind of prompted this episode today?
I would say, I would say there's just people around us who are struggling. I know marriage is really tough, and a lot of people show a certain side. I would say they show a certain side while in front of people, but internally are struggling. And so I just want to kind of have a good reminder of some good practices so we can have healthier marriages. Plus, even us, like I always got to sharpen my iron, and I always got to get better. And something that I feel like as I was kind of studying through, I just feel like it's really good to talk about and really good to remind ourselves so we can have a good marriage, because it's the most important relationship in our lives, right? And this is not, these kind of skills are not just for marriage, they're also for relationships. So,
yeah. Again, in our business or with our clients or with our kids or even with us, I think you need to have a backbone. You need to have a structure on how to be with other people. And unfortunately, it's not something that we're taught in school, definitely not, but maybe not even from our parents, for everybody. So Peter, how do you kind of think about this topic? How should we set this up? And what are some of the key principles that you want to go back to?
yeah, so let's just go through it. Couples don't usually fail for lack of love, but for lack of relational skills. How they listen, how they argue and respond in everyday moments, right? So I'm gleaning from two main books that are one of the most powerful books I've read in my life, which is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win and Influence Friends. I think you know of that one. And there's a few principles that I want to kind of go through, which is number one, being proactive. Own your part instead of just blaming. Think win-win rather than trying to win, right? So both spouses' needs matter. Seek first to understand. Listen before defending. This is very hard for men. And then from How to Win and Influence Friends, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Attack problems, not your spouse. Give honest and sincere appreciation and say what you value often. And then the last thing would be a good listener. Invite your spouse's inner world. Okay. So the first part I want to talk about is seeking first to understand rather than listening to win. I think this is really hard for us. What do many girls say? So many girls. What is the main thing that you hear from them? Maybe not from your wife, but
In what situation?
so like when you're arguing.
I don't want to get in trouble here.
Yeah. So when you're arguing, I feel like a lot of girls say this phrase.
Are you? One I can think of is, you should know how I feel.
Okay.
That's one.
Okay. So they feel misunderstood.
My wife is so perfect. I don't really.
Oh, okay.
Can you help me out here?
Okay.
What are you going for?
Hold on. Hold on. The camera angle. So it's kind of like that. So basically, they say, you're not listening to me. You're not hearing me.
Oof.
Right? That's a lot of girls have that complaint. And the thing is,
Sorry, I wasn't listening. Can you repeat?
I'm glad you're here because I'm actually talking to you.
No, that's a good one. It may not sound verbatim to that, but I feel that.
Yeah, why do you think they do that? Because it's like we clearly listen to what you said, but for some reason they say that we're not really listening. And why do you think that is?
For me, it's because I already have a solution for them. We're very mechanical. We're like,
Yeah.
car has no gas. Put in gas. Car go. Done.
Yeah.
And, so my wife, my wife, I love you. The one thing that she's very good at is she's very expressive with her face. So I can already tell when something is not going right.
Yeah.
And it's when she's telling a story and I'm already like wanting to speak on something. We'll just do this.
Right.
And I'm not listening.
Right.
And I'm just trying to prescribe, hey, this is the solution.
Right. I think this is something that a lot of men really struggle with because so there's like the immediate responses is we get defensive, right? It's like, because usually it's usually about us, right? And what we're not doing. And so we get defensive immediately, or we, again, try to get into prescription mode, try to get into like solution seeking mode, which our brains are wired to do. We have a lot of things that we have to fix. And so we go immediately into like, okay, here's the solution. But they don't feel heard, right? So that you hear that a lot. They still don't feel heard, even though we did hear them. And this is where I feel like a lot of men and, women as well, need to actually really work on this. We have to seek first to understand. And what that means is that we have to eat. I think one of the temptations is that because we only have a limited amount of time. We both have kids. Like we have work. We have a lot of properties. There's so many things going on. We want to rest. A lot of men after they work, they just want to go home and they want to rest. And so when the wife wants to spend time and really have a need time, I actually have a need time. It's really hard for us to like just be patient and just to listen because we feel like time is so valuable to us. I just worked all day. I don't want to listen, okay? And let's get through this conversation. But that time is such a valuable investment because then women feel truly understood. And this is what it's saying. It's to seek first to understand. Don't be defensive. And I know that's how you feel. You want to be defensive, but you have to just take a pause and make it a goal to truly grasp your partner's feelings. Not what they're saying, but what they're feeling. Okay, really hard, rather than trying to explain yours. And so saying phrases like, help me understand like what that felt like for you. And this may be so different from what you're used to, but it's a very good practice to do.
Yeah. I mean, not to be stereotypical, but I think sometimes stereotypes help us to understand better. I always have this kind of fun banter with my wife saying, like, I think you guys are really good at kind of having that conversational community where a group of women might be drinking wine or just telling their story and they're just kind of affirming each other, right? It's never like, do this. It's more like, oh my God, that's crazy. Yeah. And you must have felt so terrible that she took your promotion or whatever. So I think that's something that I joke around with her, but I do try to do that. And at the end of the day, it is tough because you're drained. It's been a long day and you're in problem solving mode. You're just like, let's do this. Let's kill all these emails. Let's hire this contractor. And I think one advice that I have for myself and others is you got to practice these skills when the stakes are lower. So I think when you say, try this phrase or do this, I think that's on a non-pressured Sunday morning or whatever, pick a time and practice that. And also the last thing I'll say is for me and my wife, we've always had different energies at different times of the day. So, like my wife is a morning person. I am because I have to be, but I'm not naturally. And I come kind of alive at night. So when I want to talk, sometimes it's not when she wants to talk and vice versa. So there's a lot of nuances, but I think that is just like strategically figuring out, okay, this time the kids are not here or they're watching TV. Let's talk about something. So yeah, it's a very good one. Seek first to understand.
Yep. It's good. So I just want to emphasize that like this is an investment, guys, like especially for guys. I know it's tough, but you don't want it to escalate. Your goal is to have a good relationship with your wife, right? And so I know it seems like a waste of time or whatever, but it's truly worth the investment because if you take time to understand that you don't have to have like 10 more arguments about this particular topic or in the future or just fouling the relationship. You don't want to be in a bad marriage, okay? Like it's torture. It's a form of torture. And so it's worth the investment, guys. Let's go into segment 2. Why don't you kind of
Yeah, so segment 2, let's think win-win versus scorekeeping. So this is something that, again, I'm guilty of sometimes. So what does it look like when you're talking about the important issues in marriage? It could be money, it could be chores. A lot of the little things become very huge because you keep score. I mean, it's a natural tendency, right? If I pass by this rock and I'm a caveman and there's a bear every single day, well, if I look at the rock, I think bear, not rock. So it could be money, chores, kids, sex even. It's a big one. In-laws, I mean, God forbid, right? We have hours of stories on that. What is the answer? You keep talking until you both feel heard and can live with the outcome instead of one person always kind of swallowing their needs or shoving things down. Because, again, from experience, I know that when you shove things down and they're not addressed, they become festering wounds and they become toxic. They get real nasty and then it blows up at the very end. So, what does that look like for you? Do you have any stories you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I will just say there's a lot of, I think a lot of men avoid, and there are women who avoid. There are avoiders in the marriage, and that is honestly one of the worst things that you could do. Because if you avoid, then it stirs up inside your heart. It doesn't go away, okay? It's like it's still in there. You're not communicating about it, and you're just getting wildly more frustrated. And I understand. It's like you want to avoid the conflict because like you're so tired. You don't want to deal with this. I get that. But when you let things fester, it only like just ruins you inside, and it will come out whether passive aggressively or very aggressively all at once. So I'll just say that. And the only thing I'll say for the I think win-win is that really you don't want to think about winning. Like, oh, I was right. Oh, you're wrong. I told you so. You don't want to get to that place. You just want to get to a solution and try not to make the other person feel bad, but more like trying to like get to a solution and make yourselves happy, right? Stop trying to be right. I think that's what men struggle with the most. And so really, you just, at the end of the day, you just want to ask yourself, what would a true win-win look like for both of us?
Okay, well said. So the next thing we'll talk about is be proactive versus blaming and reacting. So what does being proactive in marriage mean? It could mean that you take responsibility for your tone. That's a big one. It's really, really huge, the tone. Again, I'm guilty of it.
For women, yes.
Sometimes I'm too aggressive. Timing, right? I talked about maybe even, times during the day, or maybe, she's going through her period. I don't know. There's so many things to talk about. Follow through, or you just had something blow up at your work. It's probably not the best time to discuss something super serious. You initiate check-ins, repair, and date nights instead of waiting for blow-ups. What are your thoughts on this topic of being proactive?
Yeah, I think when you think of proactive, it's just like you just think of a lot. You think of just kind of doing a lot of activity and doing things before things occur, and it is that. But I think in this context, it's like I would say proactivity is really an investment, and you have to take responsibility. I think that's the proactivity part of the definition I like, is that we have a response ability, meaning ability to respond in a certain way. So I think when we get into conflict, what's really easy for us is to simply blame the other person, make the person feel like, oh, this person's crazy, this person's this and that, this person is the problem. And a lot of people don't take responsibility for their own actions. And what this is saying is we need to start becoming introspective, put a mirror in between us and the perpetrator and say, what am I doing wrong? What can I change? So that's the first really, I feel like, very important aspect. And then the second part is, making that investment of, the regular check-ins, the repairs. My wife and I have knee-to-knee times, right? And we really do talk things out. again, I have a million things on my mind. And if I don't have something on my mind, I want to play video games. I want to zonk out. I want to just have my alone time. We watch the kid all day. He's in bed. Listen, I want my own time. But really, if you want to maintain, like you got to put oil in a car, right? Every 3,000 miles, right? You got to do it, or else the engine's going to break and you're going to have much bigger problems. Trust me, it's going to be much more expensive. So that's all I'll say about that.
Can you share a story? You know, I like putting you on the spot. Can you share? Can you share anything that you recently had a proactive argument about because you maybe thought it was gonna go off the rails?
Well,
is it that game thing, alone time thing, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, to be honest, this happens all the time. This happens all the time. There's something that bothers Rebecca, and she tells me what the problem is. Right? For me, I often would get defensive, and I often would just try to solve, or I would try to like just push it off, right? Because I don't want to. You know. And Rebecca may be going through an emotional moment. I'm not saying like what she's saying is illegitimate, but there are times where she wants to talk about something that I don't want to talk about, right? And
can you give us an example?
Okay, like
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. So
I have to ask. Yeah.
something that like for example, in a way to raise my son, right? So
Ooh. All right.
phones. So that was a recent thing that came up. Hey, I just noticed that you're on your phone a lot in front of Pada. You're not like doing it right in front of him, but you're on your phone while he's like playing around.
To you.
To me.
To you.
So I want that to be changed.
Man,
immediately, I'm like, well, I gotta work.
Right.
Or immediately, I'm like, well, I'm doing it where he's not really looking, you know. Or immediate. So I want to get defensive. However, the right response, and what I have been working on, is like really listening. Oh, okay, so it bothers you. It makes you feel like anxious that, you know, you think our son, which is such a precious thing to us, person to us, that he is being exposed to too much of dad being on his phone. Thus, like I'm not showing him the screen, but I am on my phone, which makes him feel, it makes you feel like he's being ignored or whatever. So that's a very good example of just, you know, rather than dismissing it, I'm spending time with her. I'm like talking to her. I'm talking her through it, listening to her. And then like, okay, I will do better, because I actually do agree. There are times where I don't agree, which then you have to go into the win-win. But for that one, it's like, okay, I really listen to your concerns and why, because you got to ask, why do you feel like that? And then from there, it's like, then, okay, make an agreement, and then don't break the agreement. So we can move on.
Yeah, that's a big one, guys. I mean, having kids and especially having a job that doesn't technically end, you know, at 5 o'clock. You know, we have clients reaching out to us. We have to share our emotional capacity with the people that are outside of our family as well. You know, there's emails coming in, and, you know, I mean, technically there's no emergency in real estate past like 6 o'clock, for example. But there's just a lot to do. I mean, we're juggling so many balls, and yet the most important reason why we do this is because of our family, our wives, our children, you know, and it is a struggle for me as well. But, you know, it's not a problem that needs to be solved right away, but just like you said, acknowledged, so it doesn't kind of fester. So that makes total sense. I will say in the notes, we have a prompt. And when I read this prompt to try with your spouse, it kind of got to me. So I'll share it. So here's a prompt you can try with your spouse. Is there one thing I do in conflict that makes it hard to talk to me? Man,
why did that bother you?
That's a big one, because I think it's like there's a pattern sometimes of me getting defensive or maybe emotional or upset, and then I immediately notice my psyche, myself switching into this like aggressive defensive mode, like I'm going into battle. Sounds weird, but that's kind of how it feels like. And then I say something, and I'm saying the right words. I mean, because that's what I always say. And yet the tone, you know, the way I say it is probably too much for her, and I can see her shutting down. And I think this is a very good like discovery question, for both sides. So I think this is a really good one. Is there one thing I do in conflict that makes it hard to talk to me? And then just listen. So very good. I love that you shared that. So moving on to the next topic, criticism versus honest appreciation. This is a good one. The question posed is, why is criticism so toxic, even when we feel we're just being honest? So let's try to unpack that for people.
Yeah, so it's because it attacks character. Like, for example, saying that you're lazy instead of attacking the behavior, which destroys safety and respect and often grows into contentment. So criticism so really this part is about criticism versus honest appreciation. And first of all, there's a ratio of how many bids, or you can call it criticism, but it's like how many bids to how much good things, like positive notes, like honest appreciation that you should give, right? We don't have to get into that, but the problem with we often criticize character in each other. We say things like, "Oh, you're so lazy," or "You never." You're always angry. You're always angry. And it may be true. Don't get me wrong. It may be true. Yet the more you speak that onto them, the more they're going to remain in that type of character. And so stop attacking the character and attack the behavior. And so one of the ways that you can do this, right, is, again, it's like, and we've talked about this before, this is an actual strategy. And this is hard to do, I'll admit. So it's like, when blank happens, talk about how you feel. When this person does this, it makes me feel this, instead of you always this. You know what I mean? So that's really important. And then pair the complaint with appreciation. I always say that if you're going to give bitter medicine, put a little honey in there, like, I'm grateful for how hard you work, and I also need more help with bedtime, right? So,
all right, I will help you with bedtime. Go play your games. I think the key point that I'm hearing from you is use I. It's about me. I'm struggling with this, and again,
rather than like you.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't want to say something offensive on the podcast, but it's like when somebody says you, I'm like, forget you, I think of another F word, but forget you. Like, I'm not even listening.
It puts you into the defensive mode.
Like, I'm not even listening to you. I'm like ready to do something here. And I think it's a really good reminder to be like, I am struggling. I feel this way. When this happens, I feel this way. Just practice it. And you could do it with anybody, with your clients, with your kids. I think this is a really good one. And I would point people back to the books. One of the books that you mentioned in the beginning. It's like, we learn from culture, we learn from our parents, we learn from society, but sometimes you have to fall back on principles of how to be a good person. Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is a great book that I technically haven't read, but I know the bullet points of the things covered. And it's something that I'll probably, read with my kid, actually, because I want to teach him that these are the ways that you can be out there and be respected. But I think going back to some of these principles and texts are very helpful for people who may not be aware of that. And yeah, just show appreciation, guys, just out of the blue. Give them a little gift of a kind word or phrase. Like, I really love it when you cook a wonderful meal for us. Like, I always make my kids thank, mom. Sometimes when like my kid, like my wife is a connoisseur of like cooking, and like she watches a lot of, like, that's her thing. She likes to make different recipes, and like sometimes I'm amazed at the things she makes, and that's one of the things that make me really appreciate her. And sometimes the kids will say something about the food, and it's like, okay, first you got to say thank you to mom, to that it's not a given. You might think it is, but none of this is really a given. And I'm actually forcing my kids to, or encouraging my kids to be thankful and say those things. And I also want to show them what dad does, because they're going to just watch it. I try to hug her for no reason. I try to say nice things. And then I know the kids are watching. It's almost like you're putting on kind of a show, but you are, because they are literally, sometimes I just see them like watching me hug her, just being appreciative of her. And I hope that, they can copy that for their girlfriends and eventually wives. So, yeah.
I just want to say before we move on that really, I feel like, men too. I think wives need a lot of appreciation, constant appreciation. And for people who are not used to that, you gotta start just doing it beyond what you feel like doing, because it's so important to. I always say like wives are like a flower, and you just gotta keep watering it. And if you're not giving it water, which is appreciation, the thing's gonna whittle and die, and it's gonna look ugly, and you're responsible for it. You just see wives who are just alive, man.
Yeah.
And I've seen those kind of wives, and I try to do that for my wife. And they're alive because you're just constantly appreciating what they are doing. And I still don't do it enough, to be honest. But it's actually also good for you. When you show appreciation and thanksgiving and gratitude, it just makes you a better person. It brightens you up. It gives you a different perspective. And so I just want to say it's a really good practice to have.
I will say that I noticed two things about you. One is you always talk so good about Rebecca, your wife. You're always like she's not even there, like it's just me. And I see that you have a habit and a tendency to do that, which I really think is cool. And then also, even when we talk to our clients, another thing I notice is you make these statements like, hey, you're such a go-getter, and, or you're really like, you really pushed hard for this. Or, I see you dropping those gifts on people. And I think that's one of the reasons why people appreciate you. And it's so important to do that. Like you said, even for guys, like we go through some tough things. Hey, you really made the right decision to do this. It was tough, but you thought through it. And so that's something that I try to copy. I think people should try to just be nice and say good things. So
I will say it's not about flattery. It really isn't. You have to be genuine about this, about your appreciation for people. Just try to find the good parts rather than just focusing on the bad parts, which is actually my natural tendency.
Okay. Because this is an important topic, I think you can only do that once you have listened 100%. And then whatever you say has so much more weight and power because you've listened to them talk. Sometimes people cry with us, and I feel like it's such a privileged moment to be like, okay, this happened to your parents or your siblings and it's just and the thing we try to do that I know you try to do is whenever we leave an appointment, it's not about getting the business or accomplishing your goal necessarily, but it's about making that person feel heard and understood. So when you walk away and they're thinking about you, it's like, man, he really understood what I was going through. And I think that's the biggest thing you could ever do for people. So,
yeah, which actually goes into our last segment, which is to be a good listener.
Great, yeah.
And it's active listening is something it's a skill and it takes time to develop, and you just grow in it and you get more used to it. You may not be a natural active listener, but I wasn't necessarily a natural active listener. You develop that over time of constantly doing it. And so really, you have to constantly be asking questions. Stop making statements. Stop telling everyone about what you feel and what you know and all your knowledge, and stop doing that. Even when we talk to clients, like you said, it's like, listen, I am actively listening. So a lot of appointments I have with my clients, I don't even need to take notes because I am so tuned in to the meeting. I'm so tuned in to what they are saying. And I'm asking a lot of questions. And I remember everything because I'm literally giving 100% of my effort into listening. And so with your relationships, it's just so important to really listen. So be curious, ask questions, reflect what they are feeling, like we said before. So if you have never done active listening, an easy tactic is simply repeat what they're saying. So give me an example, like say something. Some problem about your day, or
I'm so tired today.
oh, so you're so tired.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep last night.
Oh, why couldn't you sleep?
My kid had a achy feet, and he came into our bed at like 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh yeah, achy feet. So it's funny is that that's not really reflecting the feeling, but it's also all I'm doing is repeating some of the key words that you said. And then as you do that, the other person will just continue talking. Try this with your spouse. They're going to be like, oh, this is weird, right?
100%.
Because it is weird. Because if you haven't done it before, it is weird. Yet it's so good to get yourself in the habit of active listening because people want to feel heard. When they feel heard, oh my gosh, they bloom as a flower. They become better to you. They feel heard. And I just really try to do that. It takes effort to do. Trust me, when you're tired, it takes effort. Yet it's such a good thing to put out there in the universe.
Yeah, mirroring is a good tactic. It's easy. It takes pretty much no brain power. You can do it when you're upset, sad, whatever, happy. And sometimes you can literally say one word and just sit on that and let it hang and just like have a moment with people. It's like, wow, that's, like I feel what you're saying. You don't always have to fill every single moment with like words and smart things to say. God knows we have a lot of things to say. But sometimes just being there with people and letting them, I heard this from a colleague way, way, way back, and I still remember it. He was a detective that turned into an agent like us. And he said, sometimes I go over to people and I just let them verbally vomit, because they have so much stuck up here that when you just sit there with people and have those moments, I'm really working hard with my kids because with my kids, I'm like the dad and they're boys. So I have no idea what daughters are like, but with boys, I'm just like always doing this, and sometimes I just have to sit there and listen, and it's really tough, but it is something that I'm working on.
I actually just saw a YouTube video about this, about how your kids will feel a lot less frustrated if you actually just actively listening and just like, even though they're wrong, just actively listen and just repeat what they're saying and just make sure they're feeling really heard. Yeah. So I just watched a video on this. It was from a psychologist, and I think they've done studies. And so I think what you're saying is there's legitimacy in that.
Yeah. I mean, just to quickly expand on that, I know that because Alex is 9 in 2 months, which is crazy. I feel like he was a little, like he fit right here.
I always say that about my kid.
Like literally he fit right here. And it's so crazy and sort of sad that he'll be like 12 and 13. What were we doing at 12? Not like hanging out with your dad, like you're out doing whatever. And I know that as he gets older, I need to do more of that, just like sitting there and listening. Because, it's like the Socratic method, right? You listen to people and then you just kind of present more and more questions so they can help themselves. And that's something that I want to get them to bed. I need them to brush their teeth. They got to pee right before bed again because, and it's like I'm trying to fit all this into this finite space and I still need to have that time. It's a practice worthy of doing, but I do struggle. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, before we go into the last segment, I will say that I think people they belittle this time of giving people that psychological air. And it's just so important. And one thing I do often with my wife, and I'm proud to say this, is I'm constantly asking, like, how's your heart? How's your heart? How are you feeling today? I'm constantly asking her that. And then the reason why I feel like that's important is because they get psychological air. Because a lot of us have no oxygen and we've been just suffocating because there's no one to really talk to that will really actively listen. And so doing that with your kids is just so important. Doing that with your wife is immensely important. And if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, my husband doesn't do this or my wife doesn't do this, listen, not many people know. And this is why we're here. This is why we're talking on the podcast, and we want to talk about relationships because sometimes you just don't know, right? And we just learn along the way.
First of all, I've never heard you say that to me, so I'm very offended.
Oh, sorry. If your hair was a little longer, then I would.
The one thing I just was reminded of was I heard this thing where if your kid, what's happening right now in my household, okay, is I've realized the negative consequence and the backfiring of putting too much pressure on my older kid. He is the older kid. There's all these memes about like how the oldest reacts and the middle child reacts and the baby gets to do whatever they want. Sort of true, sort of not true. But I've realized that the more pressure I put on him, it backfires because he will just lie about things.
Oh.
And lying is a normal thing, or the desire to want to lie to kind of quickly change your reality. But one thing I do with my kid is I tell him, if you have a very difficult thing or something that you think I'm going to get upset at, say the word pickle. Like, I'm in a pickle, Dad. I want to tell you something. So sometimes he'll come to me and be like, kind of tug on me, and he'll be like, pickle. And I'm like, okay, I'm switching to like, all right, let's listen. It's like, I did this, and and it's these little things that I struggle with that I'm continuing to try and improve, that I think it's showing me that these things are so important, and the divide kind of starts right here. If I don't make sure that I am a good listener, then I know that by the time he's 14, I mean, it's too late almost. So that's what I'm trying. I'm struggling with that. I'm working with that. And for any parents out there, I think that's a good thing to try and remember.
And that just reminds me that I feel like with children and your spouses, that when you become defensive or when you become emotionally charged after someone confesses something or says something, then the person's going to just shut down. Like your kids are going to shut down or avoid you, or they're going to lie to you. And I think same thing with our spouses, because sometimes us men react, or sometimes wives, they react so hard. They and guys are just trying to be vulnerable about how they're feeling. They're probably ashamed of it. And so this is another reminder that being defensive like that is just not good. And I'm speaking to myself as well, that we have to let people speak, regardless what they're saying. They're feeling certain things, right? So for example, if a man is lusting after another woman, it's like let him speak, and because he's feeling it, let him speak. But what happens a lot of the time is, because we start having all these reactions to what they are saying, that they keep it to themselves. And what happens when things are not exposed? It grows mold, man. It gets worse and worse, and it festers, and and then that whatever problem that is, it grows, and it can actually turn into a full blown, et cetera, whatever, like cheating, or for kids. Let's just say he struggles with, lust, right? It's like, he's a kid, he doesn't know better, and he struggles with porn, and he wants to talk to dad, but then he knows that you're going to react in such a way. And so he doesn't want to talk to you, doesn't want to approach you. And I feel like we are like that a lot with our parents, right? It's like, I don't want to talk to them because they're just going to judge me. And that's something that we got to work on. So there's a lot to this particular statement that, we want to talk about.
Yeah, I love it, man. So we can wrap this up. So let's talk about what are the biggest things people are doing wrong and that quietly destroy marriage. And, these are very important points to consider. The first one is criticizing character instead of naming specific behaviors. Listening to defend, not to understand. Trying to win instead of seeking win-win. Reacting from anger instead of proactively owning your part and repairing. Withholding appreciation, it's a big one, and assuming they already know, or they should already know. avoiding hard conversations, or shutting down. So, Peter, if a couple were to listen to our podcast, listen to all these things, what's one thing or a few things that you think they should keep in mind?
One of the things that you said that I really want to emphasize, especially again, I feel like this is something women do, is they should already know. And I think that's a huge problem because you need to communicate and stop expecting them to just know, because sometimes they just don't know. Or sometimes they need to be reminded of what you are feeling and what your preferences are. So I just want to say that this whole like, oh, they should already know, please correct that, because I think that's very unhealthy. And just the one thing, if you were to take one thing out of this podcast, when you have your next conflict, let one person share, and then the other person must summarize and validate what they heard before giving their side, then switch roles. Okay? So my pastor actually taught me to do this. So my pastor taught me, and he does this often with his wife. He has a beautiful marriage. He's been married for 25 plus years with a great marriage, 4 kids. And he says that he actually did this with me when Rebecca and I were having a conflict. Him and his wife met me, and they were like, okay, what did you hear Rebecca saying? And I had to reflect what she said and how she felt and just validate how she felt. So that would be the one thing. And it's hard to do, and you may not be used to it, but you got to work on your marriage, guys. Like you got to do this, and you can get a therapist too. And I will say that if you're not willing to even get a therapist, or you're just not willing to work on your marriage at all, you're miserable to be married to. You are miserable to be married to. You are a torture device for the other person, and you're the problem. Sorry, I'm so bold, but I have to be honest.
I mean, I think the one thing I realize time and time and time again is we're so good at not seeing ourselves sometimes. And we're so easily able to pick apart the third party or the next, your colleague or friend or whatever, or the stranger. But we have so many blind spots because that's kind of how we're built. Like we're built to, and the analogy is like, there's a nose right in front of you, but you don't see the nose. Because your brain literally, like if you try to look for your nose, you will see your nose, but your brain half the time or 90+% of the time just ignores it. It's you're built to basically kind of survive on the lower spectrum of needs, and this stuff does take practice. And I think for people like me who struggle with this, these are the techniques that you must practice on a low stress environment when it's the right time and timing for both of you. And the one thing I saw on YouTube recently, or I've been watching on YouTube, it's almost a guilty pleasure, but there is a world-renowned, couples therapist that holds live couples therapy. And they put it on camera. Oh my God. Ooh. It is so spicy. And every time the spouse speaks, you're like, I get you, man. And then the wife speaks and you're like, oh, I get you too. And it's like, it's like putting yourself out there. And it's about like in-laws. It's about, sex before or after marriage or kids. Like it's so illustrating how you are just in your bubble, and you need sometimes an expert to, that's what I'm doing with my kids. I did it this morning. I had to like make them shake hands and talk about each other's side, and it's time consuming, but super necessary. So I'll just end there.
We all need brokers.
Yeah.
And here is an endorsement of our business. No, I'm kidding.
But seriously, I mean, have you seen a seller and buyer try to negotiate?
It's or there's a situation recently I heard like there's this husband who's getting a divorce, unfortunately, but doesn't want to use a lawyer. Oh, and it's like, that's not happening, So it just, this is what it is. And you don't, okay, when I say therapist, you don't, because some people are like, oh, financially that's a struggle. And it really is. I mean, it's like $150, $200, but you do have friends, right? You do have family members. You do have people that you know who would love you enough to be willing to sit down with both of you guys and just facilitate the conversation. And so it doesn't have to be a paid thing. It could be free.
Call Peter. He'll help you.
My number is 555. Don't call me.
Or your pastor. That's a really great one too for people who go to church. I mean, what a great resource.
Pastors, I mean, this is a part of what they do, is to really shepherd their people. And so, and if you don't go to church, you can go find a pastor, and I'm sure, or you'll find a leader in the church, and I'm sure they'll come sit down with you. So is that it?
That's it.
Okay, guys, thank you for watching our podcast. We felt like it was appropriate to talk about relationships today. I hope this helps someone. And if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button. Please like. It does help. And we just appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next video.